Hello everyone, my name's Jim Zeta. Welcome to another episode of The Productive Attorney. Today we're going to be talking about how to and when to expand your law firm and how to and when to contract your law firm. So responsible growth and responsible contraction of a law firm. As you know, I start my podcast with a war story or something that's current events, and what I will do is kind of walk through the decision-making process that I had on when to grow and when to contract and why I made those decisions, and ones that I got right and ones that I got wrong. When I first started in 1988 as an attorney, there was not a lot of movement among lawyers. Your feeling was that you went to a law firm, and I was fortunate to go to a big law firm in Shannon Gracie. Your feeling was that that law firm was your forever firm, and you were going to be there forever, and you were going to become a partner, and you were going to make good money and support your family, and then, that's where you'd be forever. And there are some lawyers that spend their lifetime at one or two law firms. That's changing now. There was just a study that came out from the American Bar Association that currently, now in 2022, the turnover rate of associates at big law firms is 25% a year. So effectively, after 5 years, all of the first-year associates have turned over. And that is much higher than normal. And what they're finding in their study is that the reason why the people are turning over is not because of hours and not because of money, which is counterintuitive. And it just goes with the Great Resignation and all the other issues that are going on with kind of the COVID-related issues that are out there with respect to associates. But it is a unique trend. It's a trend that's been coming, and big law and just law firms in general are having to pay a lot more and do a lot more to retain their attorneys. Not just pay more or give them less hours, but more things like giving the ability to work at home, flexibility, and just finding out what that particular associate's needs are and getting them taken care of. That was not the way it was in 1988. You came to work, they gave you a pile of files, as we discussed earlier, paper files. You worked through them, and you worked your butt off, and I was working 200 billable hours a month, and you just work, and just learn the law that way, and this is your home, and they're going to take care of you. In 1993, my partner that I was working with left the law firm, my forever firm, and he came to me and asked me to go with him. I wasn't going to leave, but a person from the executive committee came into my office and told me that they didn't know, with my partner leaving, whether they'd have enough work for me. And so I walked down the hall and I accepted the offer of the partner that was leaving. Ironically, and about 2 hours later, another partner from the executive committee comes up and says, we would like you to stay, and we have plenty of work for you to do. And I said, look, I don't know, you don't know what the left hand's doing. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, but I was just told there was no room for me in the firm, and so I took the job. In hindsight, that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because I had gotten comfortable at the big firm, had gotten comfortable with the paycheck, with the work that I had, with the people that were there, but I wasn't stretching myself. And so I went to a smaller firm. There were 8 lawyers, and I started out as an associate, and I worked my way up to a partner. Being a partner there wasn't as a big a deal as you'd think. It was kind of an eat what you kill shop, where you bring in your own revenue and then we split the expenses. So if you didn't bring in revenue, you didn't make money. There was not any sort of, hey, let's spread out the revenue among everybody and share it. No, none of that kumbaya stuff. It was just, you make it happen. In 2001, the law firm was faced with an expiring lease, and there was a lease that was coming up that they wanted us to sign. It was the most expensive space in town. It was a 5-year lease, and we were supposed to personally guarantee it. My forever firm had gotten into a merger, and that merger blew up. And in that 1-year time period, several of the partners of the firm had signed on as personal guarantors for the leases of the firm that they were merging with. And these lawyers, who were great people, were left with this terrible debt. And so it always stuck in my mind that a personally guaranteed lease is something that you really have to think hard about. And I had been wanting to go out on my own, and some of the other lawyers of the 8 of us had been talking about leaving. So for me, it made sense to go and do what I've always wanted to do, and that is open my own shop. And so I took with me, and this is growing your firm is just kind of where you start, right? And so I started with myself, and I started with 2 paralegals. The number one thing I have to look at when starting a firm or when growing a firm is money. It's finance. Can you afford it? If you can't afford it, then you can't do it. Simple as that. And how do you do it? You look at your revenue over the last 3 years, you look at your client base, and you look at what's the revenue going to be next year generally. You can never predict, especially in the personal injury field that I was in. You can never really predict exactly what your revenue is going to be, but you have a general idea. You know what your cases are. You know what the expected amount is that you're going to get on those cases. And so you can kind of figure out, okay, if I really had to, I could afford another person. One of the things that I've read again and again over the years that sticks with me is, and this goes with growing and contracting firms, is make sure you always pay yourself. I've always had a salary that is enough to pay my base living expenses. Includes if I had a mortgage, any property taxes, the day-to-day bills, enough that I can pay myself that amount. That way, if there's any sort of profit within the firm, it is kind of gravy. And if I have to go ahead and if the firm starts to lose money, I got to think, what am I doing wrong? If I can't pay my necessities through the firm, then I'm doing something wrong. I'm not running my business efficiently. I'm not running it correctly. I'm not getting the right cases. I'm just not handling my business correct. So when I went on my own firm, I was very fortunate. In the first 3 months, I settled a case, and the fee on that case was over $300,000, which was seed money for me to go forward. One thing I did with that money is I put $50,000 in a money market account, and that was my money that was going to sit there, that was there only for an emergency. I figured $50,000, especially back in 2003, would take me 6 months living expenses if I had to have it, and it just let me sleep better at night to know that I'm self-financing my firm and that I can do it go forward. In 20 years, that money market account has not changed, has never been used, and the bank that I had it in and have it in has gone through 3 different it's morphed or been merged and acquired 3 different times. It started out at M Bank, then Tab Bank, and now it's Chase Bank. But that little $50,000 has stayed there, and that's just now kind of my security blanket, if you will. So you have your own firm, and I have my own firm. And now the question comes, am I going to grow it? And that goes back to what we talked about in the first 2 podcasts. What are your core values and what are your goals? Do you want to become a bigger firm? And if you're going to become a bigger firm, you have to understand that you're going to lose some control over your firm. So if you want to become bigger, you're going to have to delegate a lot of your responsibilities that you've learned how to do and learned how to do right to other people, and you're going to have to trust them. And to not be able to have control of your cases or your matters and control over certain issues of the law firm is kind of difficult for entrepreneurs. It's difficult for anybody to lose that control. So you have to be able in your mind, can I delegate? What do I want to delegate? What do I want to keep? That's a super important issue, and it has to correlate with what your core values are and your goals are. If you're going to try and make a ton of money, if that's your goal, just to make as much money as you possibly can, then you want to really expand. You're going to have less and less responsibility on a day-to-day basis. You're going to become more like a CEO. You're going to go out there and you try and acquire as many strong, talented attorneys and paralegals that you can, but you have to make sure that you can afford those people and that you have the clients and the finances to able to do it. Another critical thing in growth is you have to have efficient systems. And we talked about this with case management. I did a long podcast on case management software. And the key is if you get the right case management software, it's unlimited as to how much you can expand. So right now with our center-based software, but if you get any of the other softwares, you can, get people on the software for, if you're growing at the rate you are, for a relatively minimal amount, but then they have access to everything that you have. And it's on the web, so it's not server-based anymore, and you can just grow. And you can even grow to the extent now, as we've done pandemic, where people are working from home. And that comes with a whole nother level of trust issues and things of that nature. I've actually heard of law firms who have had cameras on facing towards their employee at home to make sure they're there working at home. Look, if you don't have the trust level of your employee, that you don't believe that they'll be working when they're at home, they shouldn't be working for you. I mean, some people say, oh, I can't look at everybody every time. I just have to have some checks and balances. Look, we're all adults here. These people have gone through law school, or these are talented paralegals. If you don't trust them with that, they're not going to take the initiative. They're not going to work hard for you. You really have to have that level. And so then the question is, when do you hire? If you have a goal of rocket growth, you hire when you're financially able to do it. It doesn't matter what the caseload is or anything like that. You just wait till you get the finances, you can do it, hire someone else, and then increase the revenue, hire someone else. If that's your way of growing, then you grow that way. The other way of growing is, and it's the way I do it, it just goes more with my core values, and that is when I just get so busy. If I get so busy that I cannot handle the caseload that I have, then, why would I have to give someone else in to help me, or else I can't take care of my clients. At that point, if you're that busy, then your finances should work. If you're going to grow, you need to go out and have to hire people. That's a whole nother area that's become difficult. There is probably the best place to go to hire a paralegal, in my opinion, is Indeed. We've gone out to look for paralegals there. We put out an ad for a paralegal when one of ours left, and we had 200 people who applied for it. We looked through all of them. We had 12 that we liked. We reached out to all 12 of them. 6 of them responded. We asked them to do personality tests, and 4 of them did personality tests just to see if they matched. So the way we do it, and this is a tip from a friend of mine who does background screening and hiring for people, he said, look, you take the personality test, meaning me and my staff, and then we will see the people that are most compatible with you. So we went ahead and did the personality tests, and we took 4 people, did them, and 2 of them were compatible with us. And we interviewed 2 of them and hired 1 of them, and she's worked out very well for us. Another way is to ask for word of mouth. Is there a paralegal out there? Is there a lawyer out there that you like? Another way is to headhunt for a lawyer, to go find a lateral to try and have that he or she brought over to your firm. And that's kind of an aggressive way to do it, but that's one way to do it. I have kind of inside track. I'm a professor at Texas A&M Law School, and as a professor at A&M, I see students all the time, and I've had a few students in my classes that I thought were superstars. Both of them went out and got experience at other law firms, but I told them when they left that if they ever became dissatisfied to give me a call, and both of them did. Hired both of them. They're working for me now, and they're working out wonderfully. Great lawyers, great people, great families, and I do everything I can for them. I give them big incentives to bring in their own business. I give them the ability to work from home, and they both work from home. I do everything I can to make their life easier because they work very hard for me, and they do a great job. Just this past week, they both settled 6-figure cases, and they just do phenomenal work. Once you got all of these people here, then you have to get them to all buy into your program. And by that, I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it. You have input. You're part of the process. and I want you to buy in with me and make all of this work. And if they do, it becomes a team effort and becomes a family effort. And family is a word that's, I think, is abused by some employers to make it seem like it's family. And I don't do it that way. I don't necessarily say we're family. We have our families, and that's who we go home to, and that's who we love. But we have our work family, and when we come together as work, we are together, and we spend a lot of time together like families do, and we need to treat each other with respect and decency. And when you do that and you get everybody to buy in, then it works well. So then at that point, when do you expand again? Well, it comes back to finances. Now, I've had an experience in my career where I've had to contract my firm, and that can be really painful. One of the issues, the restrictions of growing your firm is physical space. I fortunately have a large enough office where I have extra offices that I was set up for that. But if you're in a lease and you don't have the physical space and the people want to work at the office, you may have some issues there. Working from home is kind of solving that problem on the physical space, but you do have space limitations, so you do have to do some planning as to whether or not you're going to, for space purposes, whether or not you're going to grow and contract. On the contraction side, I had a mass tort. I had lawyers working for me. I had temporary workers working for me. I had paralegals working for me. And the law changed in the state of Texas. We had done well, but we still had work to do on the cases, some work left with some defendants. We had resolved with some, and they changed the law midstream on us. And as a result, the cases were essentially worthless and had to be, the way the statute worked out, they weren't necessarily dismissed and people didn't lose their rights, but there was nothing to pursue. So we ended up, and I saw this coming, and so you have to be well informed of your area. And so I started to let people know, look, if this happens, we're going to contract the firm. I will go ahead and help you find another job. I will keep you employed here until you have another job. That is my pledge to you. I would just ask that you start looking now. I will give you a reference to find, and I will tell people why it is that you're out there looking. And maybe one day, if I grow back again and you're looking for work, you'll remember and come back here because I really liked you working for us. The other thing I do is if someone just cannot find a job and wants to go out on their own, or really just under any circumstances, I never contest unemployment. I just don't feel like if someone is in that position where they're not working, unemployment's temporary and helps people in a time of need, and so I don't do that. You may, but I don't. That's just not the way I do business. And so contracting is hard. Now you're left with some excess physical space. You've had to let people go. But it's almost like bankruptcy when you get rid of debt. When you get rid of the payroll that you've been kind of hanging on for so long, and you reduce that payroll and you reduce the expense and you reduce all the expense that goes along with people, there's kind of a freeing effect to it. And so when I got small again, I went ahead and was really careful on growing. And I really wanted to make sure that I absolutely needed to have people when I hired them. The other aspect I would bring up about growing and contracting your firm is where you are in terms of your practice. By that I mean what part of your career are you in. Early in your career, you can take the chances to grow and to contract and do all those sorts of things and play with it. You can experiment with it, and when it goes wrong, you can fix it pretty easy. If you grow too quick, you can contract. If you contract too quick, you can go ahead and find some more people to come in. As your career goes on and as you get kind of in your ways, and a new kind of issue arises, and that is you as an attorney are starting to wind down. You as an attorney may be starting to burn out. You as an attorney may be wanting to shut your practice down and go do some other type of work. Those types of things, when you contract that way, those types of issues come up, and you have to then put that into your growth and contraction. So I'm in a winding down phase of my practice, but I want to give it to or give it, sell it, transfer it to the attorneys that are working for me now. And in so doing, I have to be careful about growing it so I don't put too much burden on them, but careful about contracting too much so that also they have too much work to do. And then I also have to give them responsibility. So as I start to do getting closer and closer to ending my practice, I have to start giving them more and more responsibilities. And for us control freaks that are lawyers, that's hard. That's hard to go ahead and give up your practice, give up your cases, give up what in essence are like you raised these cases, you worked these cases, you developed this case management system, you set up the practice the way that you want to set it, and then to go ahead and to give it other people who do it differently is very difficult. And so you have to be ready for that. It's a fun ride, and it's something that lawyers don't think enough about. You're in the heart of the battle. You're in the meat of, the case. You're in a big transaction. You're handling this deal, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I need to grow this thing or contract this thing, but you don't really make it a priority. When you start to feel pressures either way, hey, I have too much expense, too much payroll, and I don't have the business to handle it. Or the other way around, I'm working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I don't seem to be making headway on my cases, even though I have all the efficient systems in place. All my people are working really hard. I think I need more help. That needs to then become a priority of yours, and you have to think it through exactly how you're going to do it, and carefully plan your growth or carefully plan your contraction. Growth and contraction of law firms, something we'll all go through during our time as lawyers. Thanks. That's another episode of The Productive Attorney.